Welcome back. So we are in another prototype here, super complex. I mean, not that complex. I mean, it looks much crazier than it actually is, but let's get right into it. What I want to showcase today is just how a user can add something to a cart and just my thought process around that. So what I have here is I have like a little interest picker on the home page. And when users kind of select or drag any one of these options, it's going to smart animate the options here. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So we're just going to push these other options out and these will be able to be selected. So what I really want to focus on is the rules that I was trying to follow before around just motion in general, showing proper state feedbacks, allowing users to actually see like what's happening without making like certain interactions instantaneous or happen instantaneously. So like if I swipe this, it doesn't mean that like in an instant we're going to jump to the next page, but I want to see that smooth transition and understand that, hey, that's how I got here. So now that we're on this page, what I'm going to do is I want to continue with that kind of philosophy, and I want to click this controller. And what's going to happen is this image is going to animate into here. And this is what I'm talking about, how things need to be named properly. Let's take a look. So I've named this one product. It's like a frame within a frame. So there's a frame here, and then there's the product container frame. Within this, I need to name this whole thing product container if I want things to work out the proper way. I can't remove this from the product container, this item, because the product container creates that little animation there. And this is what I was talking about when we were creating prototypes. When we have so many different like moving pieces and parts, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So what I would rather do now, I would probably break this into its own prototype to showcase this interaction. And then after maybe once I'm happy with that, I can rename this to whatever I wanted to and, probably take this out of the frame and then have less frames to worry about in the following interactions. But I just want to showcase everything at once. But if you're going to go back and do it a little bit more differently. Now, so if I want to click on this, it's going to pop up. You'll see that this image is going to animate and grow. So let's click that. So we have that image animating and growing, and you'll notice that, hey, this actually led just to this page. What happened? Like, why does it look like this? Well, that's because I didn't want everything to pop in at once because that's pretty jarring as well. So I've set a delay, and it's only a 1 millisecond delay. So what's going to happen is this is going to pop up, and right afterwards, we're going to start another animation, and it's going to take 400 milliseconds, which is just under a second. And we're going to smart animate, move in these items, unless they're already there. So if I select this, it's not there, it's gonna move in. What about the carousel? So if I go into product, the carousel dots are there, so they aren't gonna move in because that would be kind of weird. What they're going to do though is they're going to actually just dissolve in. So like I said before, if you have matching layers, they're gonna just be handled properly as is. So this is set to like a 0 opacity. This is just going to kind of come in. It's not going to move in with the rest. So let's take a look where we are right now. So at this point, there's a couple things we can do. And what I want to showcase is, the different variations of how we can look through different products. And I thought about bringing in a little bit more fun. I thought, what happens if we use GIFs to showcase some product features? So we see, oh, wow, like this starts to become a lot more interesting. It's much more dynamic as a product. Things are happening on my screen. I'm wowed as a user. And now we're just back to the normal one. And you can tell like everything else changes accordingly. So that way it's easier to see. Really nice. And the way I did that was because the screen background color on this image is black, I needed to be able to set this background to black, but I also needed to break this out into several frames so we don't get some weird black coloring coming through. So I've kind of just hidden it to the side in this frame. And then once we swipe through this frame, we're going to have the same kind of delay. So we can see that here. If we zoom in, so after a delay, 1 millisecond, and then the 200 millisecond push in. And nothing is going to change. The only thing that's going to change is this item's coming in now. And then same for when we swipe out. So that item's just going to be on the edge again. And we're going to pop over to this. So let's take a look again. So we're able to swipe in and out. And it's really smooth. You can actually catch a little bit of the black background here. It's not going to be perfect. Let's see if we can catch it. You see it right there. But it happens so quickly that you don't even notice it. Just barely. And nothing's going to be perfect, but it's enough to give people an understanding of how you want things to work. And all within Figma. So super, super amazing. So let's jump in. Now, the next thing I want to showcase is what happens when we want to add something to our cart. So I've been thinking a lot about, the cart icon. I actually like the bag icon a little bit more. It kind of coincides with the brand that we have. So I've kind of have like this little bag button alongside some of the details here. And what happens here is if there are options for the user to select, I want that to kind of pop up. So in the case that there isn't, then users can go straight to the cart. But let's take a look. So when I click this button, we're going to smart animate, and that means all the layers are going to act accordingly based off of the naming. So this is named footer and this is named footer. So this is actually going to apply its own scaling and positioning. So this is going to slide up, and we're actually going to have this dissolve in, since it's called new product details and not just the regular product details that is here. And like I said before, creating these kind of little micro interactions, you have to also take into account like what happens. Like this is not really much. We want to kind of pop this up as well. So I was thinking this pops up a little bit too much. And after that delay, this starts coming in and this shrinks down. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So we kind of have a little bit of movement here now. Let's go back a couple of pages. Let's do that one more time. So we see that kind of pop down, and then we have our cart. And I've just made the whole bottom of the screen like a big yellow CTA. It's entirely covered. I want users' eyes to be attracted right there. I want them to actually convert. I want them to click, and I want them to kind of check out. So at this point, we can do a couple things. We can access our selection. Who knows? Maybe the price does change when a user selects like a blue controller versus a black controller. Maybe it doesn't, but we want to give the users all these different options and have that reflected here if need be. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So what I've done here, I've just applied a smart animate like I've done before in the past. If the user clicks, we just kind of have that dissolve. If I go back, I can see my selection is reflected there, and my selection is reflected there. So really simple way to kind of showcase just the changing of colors or the changing of options around a product. And then the last part, when a user does click on this button, what's going to happen is things are going to shrink. The image is going to start to shrink down as well. And then we're going to kind of go back to the state that we had before around the cart, just like the larger image that you can swipe through. Another thing to think about is I've actually taken that animation that we created way back and placed it in here. It's a little pixelated, but it's the GIF that we created of the ball bouncing within Figmotion. And I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to add this to the cart. And there you go. We kind of have our little notification saying that, hey, you have something in your shopping bag. It's just going to bounce over and over again. And if we want to remove it, we can start from scratch. So keeping things really simple as much as possible. Also kind of understanding that there's a couple of layers, especially to a page like this, and different types of states. So we want to kind of reflect that. We want to give users good enough feedback that, hey, you have something in your cart, go and actually like take care of that. Hey, you can go straight to the cart if you want to, or you can remove it, making this CTA the primary one. This is much more secondary. And right here, we've probably used the remove button in a way where it's not necessarily the type of button that we would use. So we'd probably do like a 16 style. This would be like just like the text button and just a UI gray. And there you go. And if we wanted to, if we really wanted to kind of de-emphasize that, just remove the font weight. So we were on extra bold, now we just on bold. Like I said before, once you create like a typographic system or just like components, you're not locked in. There's certain variations that you need to create, you may want to create just so you have a little bit more depth of in your designs. And it's not necessarily too much to handle for a developer. So what I've done here is now we're on the final screen and users can see that they have a item in their cart, and this will be reflected on the navigation as well. What we can also do is say we take this home navigation. Actually, we're going to go to our checkout. So we have another checkout over here. Actually, just leave that for now. If we wanted to say go home, and we wanted to place this GIF, let's see, where is this located? Okay, so we have a shopping bag. Okay, so our GIF is in here for some reason. Probably bring it all the way on top. And like if we wanted to, we can actually remove this frame. We can keep it there because nobody's scrolling, but okay. So we have that, and say if we did want to change the cart, we can easily do that here to like a bag. And what I'm going to do is, oops. I'm going to just paste that in there. So it's a really long, weird name. We can rename that just to GIF. Okay. So we can just place that right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect this page to that page. It's just going to move in, no smart animation. That's it. So we can start seeing how that GIF will look if we actually have it in our navigation. So, you know, what I really wanted to showcase here is that we have a bunch of different options in terms of like dragging, showing that state feedback, also switching it up when the user is clicking on an item and going into like a new page like this and keeping that really smooth as a transition, but also making sure that there are transitions when users are clicking certain buttons like that. If they click above that, it kind of just goes down. But we notice that, you know, things are very, very clear on how users are getting from one place to the next. And that is what we've done for the product page and adding an item to a cart.